Okay, so we're up to the concept of biodiversity. What do we mean by biodiversity? Well, although living organisms share many common characteristics, they are incredibly diverse. They have very distinct elements and they are very different from one another. There's many, many, many different forms, a great variety of life forms. We say, but there's a vast diversity of species and they differ from one another. So basically, one of the points of this course is to point out to you the biodiversity that exists, that does exist. And they've estimated that there's between 5 to 30 million different species that live on Earth. That's a tremendous number. It's difficult to even visualize what we mean or get a grasp of 5 million, no less 30 million. So there's somewhere between 5 to 30 million different species that are believed to exist on Earth. And there are these species are divided into 5 kingdoms, as we'll learn. There's Monera, which are bacteria, Protists, which include things like paramecium and fungi, paramecium and amoeba. There's fungi, which are mushrooms and yeast. And there are plants and, of course, animals. And then the animal group, we know, is divided into fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals. Of that large number, 5 to 30 million, only 1.5 million species have been named. And there's about 260,000 plants that have been named, about 500,000 vertebrates, and 750,000 insects have been named. So this is quite a large number of organisms which have been named, but still there's many, many more yet that have been classified or have been studied and put into their correct taxonomy, the correct category. Now, the place where we like to study the life forms and discover new ones, the greatest place for that is the tropical rainforests. And the tropical rainforests, they're located along the equatorial lands of Africa. Okay, you can see here, and also Southeast Asia in this area here, and also in Central and South America. Okay, this is the equator. Okay, and this is where we find, you see in green, our tropical rainforests, where we have the greatest amount of life forms or the greatest diversity. In fact, half of the Earth's species live in these rainforests. So they're considered to be the showplace for Mother Nature. And they don't live on the ground, but they live in the higher upper portion of the rainforest called the canopy. This is where the dense foliage is. This is the top of the trees. Okay, they're at a very high altitude. Because if you're a tree and you are part of a rainforest, then you have to be at least 100 feet tall. So that's pretty high up there. Okay, so how do we study then these different life forms at such high altitudes? Well, there are people that actually do climb the trees. They, have lots of protective gear and a lot of safety equipment, but they do climb up there, and that requires, of course, a lot of strength. You have to be very athletic to do that. But there's other methods to study the rainforests, okay? Another method that is commonly used, this is just showing you here some of the canopies of the rainforest over here on the left, and some of the animals that live there. To study the rainforest, you have something called a treetop raft, which is right here. And this is a structure that has a mesh in the center, sort of like a screen, a heavy-duty screen. And the scientists are kind of bopping around in here. And you see the helium balloon can travel along and actually find the location where the scientists want to be to study and lower the raft, and then they kind of just leave it there. And so the scientists can work in the area and there's little openings where they can take samples of the organisms and put them into containers to bring back later to the laboratories and to classify and study new life forms that we didn't know of before. Okay, so it's very tedious work, but it's supposed to be a spectacular view. It looks almost like you're in another planet up here, but they kind of, can bounce around here and they're safe. And at nighttime, I guess, when they're done for the day's work, the helium balloon comes back and it reattaches and takes them back to safety, and they land. Another way to do this, okay, which you'll see in the upcoming films that I've put on here, is with these motorized balloons. So like 2 people can fit into this balloon that can sort of skim along the top, and they can regulate exactly where they want to be. And we'll see, as I said, there's a couple of films coming up showing you this. Okay, so the canopy then, this very high altitude area in the rainforest where the foliage is so dense, this is where we find the greatest amount of biodiversity. Now, in these beautiful rainforests, the species are being lost faster than anywhere else on Earth. In fact, in just the past 40 years, man has managed to destroy over 50% of these rainforests. And that's because we are overusing the trees for our own greed, for lumber and for fuel. And we cut the rainforest down. The species have no place to go. They become extinct because they are lost. And we don't replace what we've destroyed. Of course, now there's much greater efforts in preserving the rainforest. If we don't stop, we will have nothing left. This concept of knocking down the trees without replanting is called, of course, deforestation. We ruin the forests, we destroy them. Okay? And as I said, one of the purposes of the course is to show you the tremendous variety amongst living creatures. So what we're going to do then is we're going to end here, and we're going to take a look at some of these films from, they're short films, to give you an idea of how you study the vegetation as well as the animal life up in the canopy.